All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Energy Economics Podcast for parents of neurodiverse children. I am so excited. This is the first episode of the show, and I have a friend and business partner here, Nicole Cruz. Nicole, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. It's been a long day, and I'm excited to be doing this. This is a different way of production. We're going to see how it goes. I'm really excited to see what the show brings. Um, in this show, though, I want to focus on you and what parenting is like for you because you have a neurodiverse kiddo. So before we get into that, I'd love for you to just take a couple of minutes and give me some background, right? Who you are, whatever relevant background you think is important, what you do, and really how neurodiversity shows up in your life.
Hmm. Okay. So, my first career was as a high school educator. I was an English as a second language teacher. And I got into it through the Teach for America program, which really focuses on diversity. And so that part of that included neurodiversity. So I'm not a special education teacher. I was trained to be able to address the needs of all students in my classroom and adapt learning to all of them. And so the idea, like the paradigm that I was trained under is one of the things that one of my mentors used to say was the ramp analogy, right? The janitor was shoveling the stairs from snow, and the kid in a wheelchair came and said, can you shovel the ramp? And he said, well, all these kids are waiting to use the stairs. And he said, well, if you shovel the ramp, all of us can go inside. And so the idea is setting up your classroom so that it's accessible to everybody without needing to do something special or take people out of the classroom in order for them to get what they need. Um, and so that has carried with me all through my career. And so now I work with business owners, not all of them, but a lot of them are neurodiverse. And the whole idea is, how do we keep business owners in their zone of genius and create a business where the other stuff kind of happens on autopilot? So we simplify, systematize, and delegate. And so that comes with knowing who the person is and being able, like I did with the students in my classroom, to set up this environment that sets everyone on the team up for a win, which involves a lot of structure and processes. And you can get nerdy about it or not, but that's how it works. The other thing that I've done for many years is holistic resilience training. And so that ends up coming into play when I work with people who are neurodiverse and have experienced a lot of trauma and challenges and difficulties throughout their life, being able to tap into that background. How do you strengthen your mind and body to get through the most difficult circumstances life can throw at us? How do you navigate those situations with a clear head, clear decision making when emotions are trying to overwhelm you? So that's a little bit about who I am and how neurodiversity has played into my life professionally. Do you want to hear about the personal side?
Yeah, like tell me, I mean, you're a mom, right?
I am a mom. I am a mom to a child who is on the spectrum and has ADHD. Um, and interestingly, I don't feel like that impacts my life very much. So I feel like there's like the narrative, like I'm supposed to be like, oh, and special needs, mom of a special needs kid, and it's hard, and there's all these issues and meltdowns. I'm like, actually, I feel like I don't know if we're just a really good mother-son match somehow. Like maybe the ways that he's different, I just happen to complement it right. But I feel like he's such an easy kid to parent, and he's just such a good kid. Like I feel like when I hear other parents talk about the challenges they have, there's challenges with every kid, but when I hear the ones they talk about, I feel like the challenges I face are ones that are much easier for me personally to deal with. Like I just feel like, I don't know, the universe paired us up very, very well. And that could be because I'm neurodivergent. I was assessed. I know I'm definitely neurodivergent, but the exact diagnosis, I feel like I'd want a second opinion because I've heard from very knowledgeable people that it sounds like I was misdiagnosed. So
Hmm.
maybe in the future I'll know, but I can't even say it matters to me that much. I think it might help me, like if I dig into it when I do find out and start to understand myself better, that would be very interesting and it might be helpful to access resources that are sort of like made for people who think like me to get a different perspective on things. Maybe it can help me figure out how to be more successful or advance further in the things important to me. Um, but yeah, other than that, I can't say it's a huge priority for me right now.
Sure. Of
Um, I feel
course.
like it's how do I explain it? I've always known I was different, and so the label that's put on that difference, um, considering I've gotten this far already, and thankfully I'm doing okay. I know that's not true for everyone who has neurodivergence, but thankfully I've been able to do okay. So it's not an emergency situation for me to get treatment. Yeah.
Yeah. So then what does like you said, I know I'm neurodiverse. I have a son on the spectrum with ADHD. All these fall into neurodiversity, right? So what does neurodiversity really mean to you?
Oh, so I take it very literally. Um, which might be
I'm
part
not
of my
surprised.
neurodivergence. Yeah. But so when I think of neurodiversity, I think that human minds across the planet and history and everything are very diverse. And so I don't use the term neurodiverse to refer only to people who are not in the middle of the bell curve. To me, neurodiversity talks about the wide spectrum, like the diversity within the human population. Whereas I'll use the term neurodivergent to talk about people who are, say, towards the end of the bell curve, where there's some significant difference where oftentimes the experience is that it feels like the world wasn't made for them.
Hmm.
I certainly feel some of that.
Yeah, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean you feel some of that? Like, how does that show up for you?
Mm, I know that I don't think and function like the average person.
Hmm.
Um, so for example, I learned social skills through analysis as opposed to it being something that came naturally to me. Um, and And in that sense, it sort of makes me a chameleon because I don't identify with one set of social skills or another. So I can literally be dropped into any environment. And to me, it doesn't even feel like masking so much. It feels like translating, if that makes sense.
Ah, totally.
So the
Yeah.
way I think about it is, and this is how I've thought about it my whole life before I knew anything about neurodivergence or any of these issues. For me, it's like, oh, I understand the language this person is talking. I can tap into it. And so I can talk that language so I can communicate more effectively with them. So imagine like if you could just drop into any country and like pick up on the language within a few minutes and communicate. That's what it feels like to me. So in that sense, I feel like masking has a negative connotation, and to me, in that sense, it feels like a positive thing that I enjoy.
You enjoy it.
Yeah, I think there is a downside because it does take mental effort, right? So like if I'm really tired or off, I feel like my ability to do that isn't as high as it is when I'm at my best. Um,
Hmm.
but overall, I enjoy the fact that I can feel comfortable in pretty much any social situation. I can just, through analysis, just kind of pick up on the social cues and know how to speak that language and sort of blend in. Like so much of human interaction has to do with these like subcultural cues that we give, whether it's tone of voice or body language or whatever. And so being able to like not be fake, but to sort of like tap in and be able to present myself as like it creates that feeling always as one of us as opposed to them. You know what I mean? And so I won't
Mm,
like
yeah.
exactly mirror because that would be almost like mocking or making fun of, but like I can tap into that like quality within myself and sort of be able to adapt in a way that's very authentic and communicates effectively with the person or the people I'm with. And so I feel like it's easy for me to connect with pretty much anyone on earth as us instead of them. And that I really value.
Yep. I love that. Like that's really important, inclusivity, right? And that sense of community and belonging. Did you tell me how old your son was earlier? I think if you didn't, I want to make sure we get that because that's really
He's
going to be
9.
relevant to people listening.
Yeah, he's 9.
He's 9. Okay. So you're a mom to a 9-year-old boy, and you don't feel like it's nearly as bad as you see with other moms.
Yeah.
You enjoy masking. You have this sense of enjoying translating, seeing it as a translation,
Mhm.
and you see a lot of other parents have more of a struggle than you. So what do you think is the biggest challenge with being neurodiverse nowadays, whether it's as a 9-year-old or as an adult?
Hmm. So first, I wanna say that like I'm saying my experience. I'm not in any way trying to invalidate other people's experiences or say that they shouldn't.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah, they shouldn't have that experience. Like this has just been mine, and it happens to be different. Um, what is it like for someone who is neurodiverse? I think there are a lot of opportunities, and I think there are also some challenges. Um, So I think one of the opportunities is that there's so much more awareness and so many uh groups, including workplaces are trying to accommodate neurodiversity. And
Mm.
while in some cases it could be like oh, we have to be politically correct and here's our token neurodivergent person, I think there's the yeah.
Hmm.
I think in a lot of cases it's actually coming from a place of, oh my God, when we make things accessible, people shine and we get the best out of them. So we can tap into more people's gifts and we can benefit from more people's gifts if we don't expect everyone to function the same way. And I feel like that's genuinely where I've seen it come from in the workplaces I've been in. And I really appreciate that. That being said, I'm in New York City, which is very liberal, and I know that there are, other places in the country and around the world where it can be very different.
Yeah. So then what do you think are a lot of the misconceptions or judgments? Like, I love the reason I asked you to be on the show is because I love that you're so inclusive and I love that you're so much like, yeah, there's a way through it. But in order to see the way through it, in my opinion, we have to be able to acknowledge the missteps,
Mhm.
the wrong judgments or the misconceptions. Are you aware of any of those, especially as it pertains to your kiddo, like
Yeah,
from other people?
so thankfully, people are smart enough to, if they have judgments about my child, not to say it to my face. So I don't know that they do. I can think of one person where I've had issues that were most likely, almost certainly due to his neurodivergence. And it was awful. It was one of his first teachers. Literally his first teacher ever. Just was annoyed by all his quirks all the time, and I couldn't stand it.
Mm.
But again,
So
now
what did
his
what did you do though with that teacher?
honestly, I would kind of brush it off. Like she would have some sort of complaint and be like, "Oh, my 3-year-old was staring at the wheels. He just wanted to look at the wheels on the train. Oh yeah, that sounds totally like him. Yeah." Like it was just
Okay.
like, "Are you serious, lady?" And I get the feeling I don't like to like, you know, like assume what someone else is thinking, but over the course of many interactions I sort of got the feeling that she was trying to dig at me because she would always talk about like, oh, I know when my daughter was diagnosed, it was like really hard and it took me
Mm,
a lot of time to like, figure it out and like come to terms with it. And like, it's okay if you're feeling these things. And I was kind of like, oh, like, thank you for your support. Like, it's fine. Like, I almost think I get the feeling based on certain interactions, it might have triggered her that I was not at all bothered by this.
of course it
Because
did.
like, I don't care. Like, he's my son. He's still my, like, you put any label you want on him. He's my son. He's the same kid that I've been loving all of these years. Like, how is this going to change anything? Why am I going to be like traumatized by it? And then like, again, that's my thought process. Someone else, like, if they feel differently, that's totally valid as well. Um, but yeah, so I think it was more, I don't know if it was about him or about me, but that's the only one I could really think of. My
Hmm.
experience has been quite the opposite. But again, I recognize how fortunate we are that our local public school that's like an 8-minute walk that way has the Nest program in it, which is done in partnership with NYU specifically
Mm,
for high functioning autistic children who are mixed into a small general ed classroom, right? So
Jesus.
it's 2/3 general ed, 1/3 special ed, autism specifically. And the teachers are trained in how to make a classroom inclusive for children who are on the spectrum. Like, I struck gold. Like, there are people who would probably spend $20,000, $30,000 a year to get their kid in something that could meet their needs, and NYU happens to be doing it right here. Like, I
Yeah.
struck gold. But so after that, like with Eric in that program, his teachers love him. They understand him. They appreciate all his qualities like I do. And they're not expecting him to fit into a box. They're not expecting him to be a certain way or do things a certain way. They see him how he is and educate him how he is, the way he needs. It's beautiful. And that's how the entire world should be.
Mm, it is. So that's a great transition into what I was just thinking of asking, and then you just put it right in front of me, which is what's missing in society to support ND people.
That, I think, first of all, this idea of normal is completely ridiculous, right?
Mm,
Because we as humans are supposed to be different. Like I talk about archetypes, right? Like if you look across time and cultures, there are certain archetypes in every single human society. Every single one. You have warriors, we call them soldiers in our society, right? You have rulers, we call them governors and presidents and congressmen and stuff like that. You have healers, we call them doctors, or, like you have all, like you have teachers, you have some kind of scholar or intellectual. You have, builders. You have, I mean, there are these certain archetypes that you always find. Oh, caregivers, which is, huge. You find them and they're supposed to be different from each other, right? And so the whole idea of like, oh, this is normal and everyone's supposed to function that way, that's not an idea that was created with the best for humankind in mind. That's an idea
mm,
that was created with the best for like companies who want a workforce in mind, right? So it's like if you can't acclimate and just sort of assimilate to this that is best for the workforce, right? Then you must have a disorder. I I don't agree with that. I don't buy into that paradigm at all.
and that's really important, right? So then how can we create a world that supports the superpowers that neurodivergent people have? I mean, I don't know that it's practical to say get rid of the whole education system, but certainly as parents or as people who teach or lead our children, what do we need to keep in mind?
Getting rid of expectations. I think that in our society, we've gotten awful at relating to each other. We've gotten
Mm-hmm.
awful at listening and connecting. We've gotten awful at emotional intimacy, any kind of intimacy. And it's I think sometimes comes down to basics, right? Like if you see an individual and you talk with that individual and you actually listen for understanding and then reflect back to them instead of assuming that the words they said have the same meaning for you that's in their head. You reflect back to them like, oh, so is it kind of like this? Oh, so would you compare it to that? Like, does this make, am I getting it? Am I getting what you're saying? And then you come closer and closer to an understanding. Then from there, you can learn, you can gain the wisdom needed to create situation that's good for that person. Now, if this is something you do as a habit in your entire life, then you're going to get really great at creating spaces that are inclusive. And then if we as a
Mm.
society adopt this as a value, then not only will the world be better for neurodivergent people and every person, but we wouldn't see the polarization we're experiencing, you know?
Yeah. So then how can we have unity if everybody's so different?
Why can't you have unity if everybody's so different?
Fair. What?
Okay, I'll expand on that instead of
No, no,
okay.
no. I see where you're going. Let me rephrase the question then.
Yeah.
What sort of society would we need to be unified with difference?
Hmm. I think it's that cultural shift, right? The wisdom to listen to people. Like right now, people listen and then they project themselves onto the other person, right? So,
Mm.
well, they did that, they must not care, right? Where it could just be that their brain doesn't function in a way where remembering certain details comes easily, right? So like we assign
Mm.
these meanings instead of trying to understand the person, asking questions about their experience and then taking them seriously, right? So like let's say someone, forgets a lot of appointments or is late and we're like, "Oh my God, like you just don't care. You're so selfish." And they're like, "No, I really struggle with this. I'm so sorry. I have like 8 reminders." And then we're like, this guy's full of crap. He's lying to me. I don't believe any of it. There's no way. It's like, no, 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 listen and take people seriously. And then
Yeah.
from that gain wisdom because I think wisdom comes when you can take multiple perspectives and figure out how they can all be true at the same time, even when they seemingly conflict.
What would you call that? Is that wisdom to you?
I think that's a big part of it. Yeah. There's probably a better word that's not coming to me right now. I wouldn't say that's
Maybe.
all that's included in wisdom, but I think that's a big part of how you develop wisdom.
Yeah. I'm thinking about how to teach this
Um,
because you can teach
are
active
you trying
listening,
to
but
bring up
then
the retreat?
no, 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 no. But you can, I mean, you can if you want, but we'll get to that at the end.
Yeah.
Um, you can teach like I can repeat back to you what you said. I can echo back to you what you said.
Mhm.
And I can ask myself the question, hey, how can I believe that there's a possibility where all these pieces can coexist?
Mhm.
But it takes, my belief, is that it takes a certain skill to see through the BS of my perception and your projection and my assumption and um, to be able to even arrive at an answer.
Mm.
So, what do you think we need to do to teach our kids, the next generation, and other adults who are teaching the kids that skill? Like, what is that? How do we teach that?
Mm. Um, I would say it starts with the mindset that, of course, there are going to be individuals who are, say, less intelligent, less moral, less competent than you.
No
But
offense to the idiots.
but if your brain goes towards like a whole group of people, like, well, they must be doing that. This entire group of people must think this, believe this, or do things this way because they're ignorant, because they're less intelligent, because they're less competent,
I'm
because
just going
they're
to
less
pause you. You said
moral.
you said that I think the hook to be aware of is if these people action, that must mean blank.
Exactly. So that should always be like a red flag that you question in your own mind. Like, oh, I'm probably assuming right now. Let me investigate this further, right? And how do you investigate? If the person is willing, you ask questions. And so I think
Yeah.
that's a part of it. That's why I brought up the retreat because we're going to be doing this. We're going to be experimenting with teaching and practicing this in groups.
Mm.
And so asking questions and first, building rapport with someone because you don't want to come to and be like, huh, I don't understand how that's not racist. Like that might not come across the best way. But if you come to someone
Probably
and you
not.
say,
Well,
I'm
that's
trying,
also not inclusive,
yeah,
right? To say I don't understand how this isn't this assumption. Like,
exactly. So, like going to someone and saying, I have an honest question and I'm trying to understand where you're coming with this. When I heard you say XYZ, it sounded to me like you were assuming that this type of person was, you know, less intelligent or less capable of knowing what's best for them. But I don't like, I wanted to ask you what you meant by that, and then allow them
mm,
to explain, like, well, no, that's not what I meant. Or, and like, again, you have to have the right rapport or it can come across as an attack. But if you have rapport, oftentimes, if you ask questions in a very honest way where you're not making assumptions, right? That's key. Like, get rid of your own assumptions. But I think asking people flat out, like, if I were to do that, it would be because I didn't care and so I'm trying to understand because you're telling me you care. Can you help me understand what goes on in your head when this happens? I think with the right rapport, people are open to being like, "Oh, no, for me, this is what's actually happening or this is actually what I meant by that."
so can I ask you what can I ask what came up for me when you said what you just said?
Yeah.
That's how you do it. Also, it's about is it about getting rid of assumptions or validating them or not validating them? So what came up for me as a response, that was the one question. That's like the host question. But then what came up for me is like the practice of trying to prove your assumptions wrong or right even, right? Not assume that they're right, but prove them right. Like try to break your own assumptions.
Um, Investigate them. I wouldn't even go in with an attitude of I'm trying to prove it right or I'm trying to prove it wrong. Huh, I'm
Okay.
curious about whether or not this is right or not. Like, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How much do we need to slow down to really get this done this way?
I'd say at first it probably requires a lot of slowing down, and then later on it becomes a way of being. So eventually you get out of the habit of, making the assumption of, well, wow, that's really ignorant, or wow, that's really whatever negative, wow, that person must not know what they're doing, wow, like these people don't care, corporations suck, the government sucks, these people suck, that people sucks, you know what I mean? Like you kind of get out of that and instead you're like, why? So a question I ask myself a lot,
Hmm.
and this has been really helpful. Why would a person as intelligent, as informed, as moral, and as competent as me behave that way?
Hmm.
Why would they do that? In what situations would I behave that way? In what situations would I believe something like that? What does it take for me to? And then kind of going through that exercise often helps me at least get closer to the point where I can have a conversation that's not super insulting and combative, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
So let's come back to your kiddo.
Mm.
If you could instill these lessons in him at 9,
Hmm.
how would you do that?
Modeling. first and foremost, always. I think actually that is by far the number one thing to do in this situation because the way he hears me talk to other people and talk about other people when they're not there is going to have far greater impact than anything I try to consciously instill in him.
Mm.
Now, then there are the conversations I have with him, right? So there have been times when he brought up ideas that to me were like, whoa, not in my house, but that he heard from other people close to him that I had no control over, which as a parent is, those of you who are parents know exactly what I'm talking about and how crushing that is. Um, and so having the conversation with him and making it very clear how I would approach or think about a situation, you know? But again, I think far more impactful is what I'm modeling for him. How does he see me treat people? How does he hear me talk to people when he's overhearing the conversations I'm having, right? He could be overhearing
Mhm.
this right now. And how does he hear me talk about people when they're not in the room?
Mm. So the old adage that I grew up with, do what I say, not what I do,
That doesn't work.
that doesn't work. What happened? What's the cost of that? What does that create? Because I know
Oh,
some parents still run that, right?
yeah. So first, you know, as a parent, we're all doing our best and we all have flaws. And so if all you can do is do as I say, not as I do, that's a great place to start. And so kudos to whoever is in that place, and that's what they can do right now. That doesn't have as big an impact as modeling. Kids absorb like a sponge. It's just like second nature to them what they see grown-ups doing around them, right? That's just like it's like their programming. So what you say to them, if you do something different, then the programming is not that they should do what you said. The programming is, oh, it's okay to say whatever I want, even if it doesn't match up with what I do. It's okay to lie. It's okay to, tell other people that they should do different things and to judge them or punish them or spank them if they don't do what I say, even if I'm doing something different. That's the lesson they're going to get from that. Um, so yeah, modeling to the the degree that you're able to. I know it's not always easy if there's say addiction or trauma, like deep rooted trauma involved. um I know there can be cases where our flaws are visible to our kids and we're telling them to be different because we don't want them to end up in the situation that we're in. And so there's no judgment here, but the most impactful thing you can do is always to model. Did you freeze? Are you still there?
I'm here. I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah. Um, I did freeze, but that's why we're doing what we're doing, the way we're
Mhm.
doing it. So you said it's not always easy if there's addiction involved.
If there's addiction or trauma, like a lot of us have flaws that, oh, I wish
You
I
were
were
saying more, and then
different.
you asked if I froze.
Oh, sorry, I think there's a lag. Are we good now?
There is now because we froze. I don't know. There is now because we froze. I have a beef with my landlord and the internet. I'm gonna reset your video. Hang
Okay.
on. Okay. Just hit start.
Okay.
Okay. Try it again. If you said if there's addiction or trauma involved,
Yeah, so I understand if there's addiction or trauma involved that sometimes it can be really hard to change behavior and there could be backsliding and that our kids are going to see our flaws sometimes. So this isn't meant to shame anybody. Those parents, we're doing the best we can. I've had those things where I'm like, oh, I do not want to model this for my kid, and then it comes out. um, no child has ever been raised by perfect parents. But to the extent we can, when we have a choice about it, with all of the power we have in us, modeling what we want our kids to do is the most powerful thing, right? So for example, I grew up with parents who told me I could be anything I wanted to be. I could achieve anything, I could do anything. And then they always like, no, 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 I can't do that. No, 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 I know I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. And so how did I grow up? I grew up not with what they told me. They told me all these wonderful, supportive things. I grew up adopting what I saw, right? So with my child, I try to always, like, I ask myself, what would I want my child to do right now? And then I do that thing. And this especially helps with mom guilt,
Mm,
you know? And like, I know there's dad guilt too. There's different
yeah.
kinds of guilt. So whatever mom or dad guilt you have, asking yourself, what would I want my child to do? And then doing that thing. Because that's what my child is most likely going to do. And then, when he does, I've already walked the path and I'm ready to mentor him, So that's honestly one of
Mm,
my big whys with the business right now. I'm like, I need to succeed because my son shows every trait of an entrepreneurial like personality, and he's not the conforming type. Like, I can see he's probably going to want to do his own thing, and if I succeed at this, then I'm going to be able to help him succeed at a much younger age much more easily.
that makes a lot of sense. Give me 1 sec. I'm just gonna play with the Zoom recording here because I think I know why we're lagging.
Okay.
1 second. Hang on. Just pause for a sec. My computer's deciding to run a bunch of hard drive intensive stuff, and the recording's getting screwed up randomly. Let's see. Okay, now it's working, which is great, but not really. Um, okay, are you still there?
Yep.
Uh, yeah, it's kind of not working. Hang on. This is where our which stuff is different. 1 second. Mm, let's try that. All right, that should work better. Talking about the importance of modeling, and you're talking about the no, still stupid. You're talking about the importance of modeling, and you're talking about the fact that if you succeed, he will too. So it really does start with the parents, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. So now we're in here a little bit more after all of the tech issues.
Mhm.
Um, so let's start to pivot a bit. If you were to leave your child with that he could do in the real world every day in order to thrive, in order to be in his zone of genius, what would that be?
You cut off for part of that. If I could leave him with what?
Cool. 1 sec.
Okay.
Let me know if I come back for you. In the
Okay.
meantime,
I'm hearing you
I'm
now.
just gonna have an issue. That's great, but it's been in and out, and this has been a persistent problem, and my landlady does not believe me that I need a wired connection, so here we are. Hang on a sec. Um, cool. Can you hear me now? I see you moving around. Um,
I can hear
there's
you.
a lag. Of course there's a lag.
Mhm.
Yeah, but there's a lag. Hang on. Almost a second of lag. I'm gonna stop your video again. I'm gonna stop my video. We'll start again. Can you press the button, please?
Mhm.
All right, let's try this, see if it works. So knowing that we've been in here about a half an hour and uh, knowing that we've talked about a lot of things, right? We talked about zone of genius. We talked about the importance for modeling and of modeling. But we talked about, the school that your kid's going to and how awesome that is for you. And it seems like you're way you specifically are having a way easier time than a lot of other parents, and you have a pretty good direction forward in terms of what's sort of required in order to create this empathy. So this is the question as we start to wrap up. If you were to leave your child with one practical lesson, right, to help him thrive, to help him be in his zone of genius all of the time, what would
Mm.
that be?
Hmm. Man, I feel like he embodies so much of it that it won't be very long before he's giving me advice. If there's one quality he has, he is so like authentic and so comfortable in his own skin, you know? Actually, I didn't realize how uncomfortable I was in my own skin until I was pregnant with him, and that quality came out in me. It's pretty amazing. Um, so if I were to give him one piece of advice that would help him stay in his zone of genius, take your
Mm-hmm.
passion seriously.
Hmm.
Foster your passions, take them seriously, whether directly or indirectly. They will, doing so will make sure you're qualified for the opportunities that are right for you.
Hmm. Now make sure that you're qualified, and how does that enable him to live in that zone of genius? I mean, we're qualified for a lot of things.
I think a lot of times, especially with children, even with adults, a lot of times like passions aren't taken as seriously, right? It's like, oh, well, it has to be like a normal grown-up kind of job, you know? Like if you want to paint, well, that's a hobby, you know? Whereas let's say you take painting seriously, there could be some opportunity for a job that matches your degree where that skill or creativity or your ability to interact in the painting community or whatever it is, you're going to be qualified to do that thing. And so if you want to move closer to your zone of genius, take your passions very seriously and put time and energy
Hmm.
into them, even if there isn't an immediate opportunity from them, because eventually there will be some sort of convergence that happens. And if you have the opportunity to just stick with your passion from the beginning, by all means do that. I know that's not always possible in our world, so there could be a path to it in a different way. But yeah, and the stuff that drains you, anytime you can get that off your plate, do it unapologetically. And this is, especially important for neurodivergent people because some of the tasks that can be the most draining or can cause the most grief can be tasks that, to other people come easily. So it can feel there can be shame around admitting like I don't do this well or I don't want to do this or I hate it or it's annoying to me, but like literally unapologetically. And this is coming from the most successful people I know. I can tell you as in my experience, as people get more successful, all those little things, like they don't have less flaws. They're actually more unapologetic with their flaws because they're so focused on what they do well. And then their team compensates for the flaws. So if you have the person who's always late, they have an assistant who's running after them, like, come on, we have to go now. Come on, come on, come on, do it. Like, you have 5 minutes, like they have that person. If they tend to be just a difficult person to work with, really angry, or they just hate people, they're just a grumpy person, then they're teamed up with someone who's an absolute people person, super charismatic, everyone loves them, they will get everyone on their side, they will solve all the problems, right? Like, the most successful people I know aren't people who have less flaws, they're people who are great at their zone of genius. And this is why this has become so important to me, because I feel like it's something that, at the higher levels in our society is commonplace, right? Like, you don't have people like just getting super grumpy about everyone else's tiny mistakes. Like, they're pretty laid back when it comes, like, oh, that's how this person is, and so what, and they're very accommodating. But meanwhile, at like the places that the normal person is at, oh, it's like they're crucified for stuff like that, but also, like, a lot of times we adopt that mentality ourselves. We're like, oh my God, I should be able to, I should this, oh my God, it's embarrassing that I can't, or I'm going to put energy into fixing myself, I have to fix myself, there's something wrong with me, I need to fix myself. And no, I mean, like, there's, a degree to which, of course, you want to make sure if you have rage issues that you're not like beating random people to bloody pulp. Like, like, yeah, like there's a certain degree to which you have to be functional, but like that's it. Then pour your heart into your passions, the things you're good at, where that converges is like a golden point, you know? And honest, I can tell you the real world
Hmm.
people I know who are the most successful do that.
So then what's the second most important thing? Is it knowing yourself?
Hmm. Second most important thing, I would say, and this is probably biased because you know my work, but
It's all bias. It's all
this is why I'm
bias.
in this work, because I feel so strongly about it. Make sure you have practices that strengthen your mind and body, right? So don't be passive about these things. And there are so many ways it can look. Have a movement practice. Like, make sure you're taking care of your physical body. Have a nutrition regimen that works really well with your body, and have a multiple mindfulness practices, from the things you do throughout the day, all day, every day, to an actual like meditation or qigong or yoga type practice. Like, have these practices. For some people it could be playing music, it could be art, it could be sports. There are so many ways this can look, but train yourself, cultivate these qualities within yourself. It's there's so much I see in society these days, and this isn't just neurodivergent people. This is one for everybody, right? Like, here we are complaining about, cell phones and how bad cell phones are for us. We're the ones who use the cell phones. Cell phones are an absolutely fantastic technology. If we cultivated the wisdom and the discipline to use the cell phones only in ways that benefited us, it would be a totally different story. And yes, I'm
Yeah.
very aware, I've been ranting about this lately, that there are people and groups that spend, I looked up the figure, it was like multiple hundreds of billions of dollars for like marketing in the United States alone, right? To like gamify phones and to make them addicting to us. And so all of their research, like, we don't necessarily have that, but we can cultivate our own wisdom. And just with what you can find for free on YouTube or the low cost of a book, and if you have access to a mentor, if you can go to a class or like a retreat or something like that, take a course with somebody, by all means do it. But you don't have to. Just cultivate these practices within yourself, right? The discipline, the gain knowledge, like all of it. It's so important as opposed to just allowing ourselves to be brainwashed, to be pawns, to be like little puppets who are moved around in ways that serve other people. No, empower yourself by having these practices that train your mind and your body.
All right. So you said cultivate these practices, go to a retreat, but if you don't have access to a retreat,
YouTube, books, audiobooks, right? Neurodivergent crowd, however you consume your material, video, whatever it is, assess the sources and like just cultivate like wherever you're starting, just cultivate wisdom, build your skills however you can. Find people who are good, who not only say they're good, but who are respected at what they do by others who do the same thing. That's very important, right? And learn from them. They probably have content out there that you can search and learn from. And whether it's working out or sports or music or carpentry or like I don't
yeah,
whatever it is.
whatever it is.
Yeah, but like physical and mental, right?
Mm.
Spiritual, if you put that in a separate category than the other two. That's another way that I'm outside the bell curve. For me, spirituality is very um it's very very much a part of everything. Like I don't see it as separate, but most people do. So if you put it in a separate category, then that's another thing to have practices around and to foster.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, that makes a lot of sense to have to cultivate awareness and cultivate um, connection to yourself in order to be able to live your passion and be connected to your passion. How else can we know what the passion is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as we're coming up to the end of the episode here, I really want to ask you, um, what lesson can you leave for parents who are struggling with neurodivergent kids and want to embody some of the things that you're talking about?
Hmm. Hmm. So first, I've only parented my own neurodivergent kid. And so what's worked for me may not work for everyone else. I think that what has been really important to me is a combination of taking seriously what I can learn from experts and really trusting myself as the expert on my child. And it can be really hard to know when to do each one. Um, but for
Yeah.
me, I think the main difference is, are you looking for answers outside of yourself or are you trusting yourself? I think as parents, it's very important that we trust ourselves and that we're constantly looking for great sources of information, but not that we see the source of what's right or wrong as being other people. Like, I don't know what to do. I can't make a decision without a parenting book or without Googling it or without this. Like, feeling very centered in
Mm.
yourself, that like, no, I'm going to make this decision. I am the best person to make this decision for my child. And instead of being arrogant and thinking that because they're my child, that whatever I pull out of my behind is the best answer, I'm going to seek out quality sources of information before I make said decision. Um,
Yeah. So
but I think
it really comes back to that validating of assumptions piece.
it does kind of come back to that. I think it's, especially if you're parenting a neurodivergent child, your gut instinct as a parent might be something that is way outside mainstream parenting advice. And if you tried to like, I'm doing exactly what all the parenting books say and all the parenting gurus, I'm following it to a T. If that's how you're approaching it, like I'm going to be the best parent because I'm going to follow the experts who are writing for a general audience, and you have a
Mm.
divergent kid, that may or may not line up very well. right? And so then you might go to, well, my kid has this diagnosis, so I'm going to read every book on that and I'm going to do exactly what they say. And that's getting you closer, but every individual child is different. So, yes, you're right. It does come back to those assumptions. It's listening and trying to understand your child and like, where are they coming from? I think one thing I do very differently as a parent is I take my son very seriously. Like his own inner wisdom, I consider that very seriously in my decisions instead of dismissing it as like, oh, whatever, he's a kid. I've been doing that since he was a baby, right? Like when he was a baby, I would be like,
Yeah.
oh, his skin feels hot. So I'm gonna get bundled up in winter gear, but like I think he's gonna be too hot if I put him in winter gear. So I would follow his cues. Like I would touch his skin. I would see, does he seem upset or agitated? No, he seems comfortable. He does not need a hat. I need a hat. My baby doesn't need a hat. That was weird, right? What mom is like, I'm gonna
Mm.
put on a hat because it's cold outside, but I'm not gonna put one on my child. It's usually the opposite. But I was paying attention to his own signals, right? Like I paid attention. Is he hungry? That's when it's time to feed him. It's time to feed him when he's hungry. It's time for him to sleep when he's tired. And I know that this goes against so much out there. And maybe if I had a different child, I would say the complete opposite. I'm totally open to that. I'm not saying that this is right for your child, whoever is listening, but I can tell you that this has been really good for my child. And like his inner compass is so amazing. To see a child who has that kind of can I share an anecdote? Do we have time?
You can share an anecdote. We do need to wrap up in 10 minutes or less.
Okay, it's not a 10-minute anecdote. So Mother's Day, which was just last month, we were supposed to go visit family. Someone got sick, and so that got canceled. And my son realized we didn't have Mother's Day plans. And so
Ah,
my 9-year-old decided that he was going to surprise me. Okay? So my 9-year-old's like, I'm not telling you where we're going, Mom. And yeah. And
okay.
so he took me on trains. Now keep in mind, this is the fourth year he's taken me on a surprise Mother's Day adventure. Okay?
That's
So
awesome.
he took me, he's like, "No, follow me, Mom. I'm not telling you where we're going." And I didn't know where we were going. I genuinely didn't. I didn't like try to trick him or no, like I genuinely trusted him because I've cultivated this in him. I saw this is what he enjoys. He likes taking the lead and I cultivated that. This didn't happen overnight. Okay, but we went and we're in Rockaway Beach, New York City. So we took the train about an hour and a half into, Midtown Manhattan. And we go and he's like, "Mom, we're here." And we were at the Empire State Building. And he was like, "Mom, I know
Oh,
you like to
wow.
walk around the city. So we're gonna see two really great buildings today." So we went and he's like, "Can we go inside?" I'm like, "Well, it's an office building. We can't just go inside. If you want to go to the top, we can spend the money to go to the top, but not if you're going to be bored before we even get there." And he's like, "No, no, no, we can just walk around." So we walked around. We went to the
Okay.
Starbucks on the
Now hang on. You
floor.
challenged his question and helped him make a decision without
Yes.
criticizing him. I want to point that out.
Yeah. And again, that came like I've been
Yeah,
cultivating
okay.
this throughout his life. So if that like it didn't just happen overnight. I've been helping him to make his
Yeah.
own decisions. He was very, very little. And then, he's like, "Okay, now we have to go this way." And he led me on public transportation. Then he's like, "There it is, Mom." And we were at the Chrysler building. And so we walked around that for a while. And then he had picked out, he knows my favorite cuisine is Italian food. And so he had gone on Google Maps and found an Italian restaurant that was in that area that had good reviews. And, and that's what he had planned. It ended up being closed, so we found another one. But like, how many women
Still.
wish that their man could plan a date like that, So it was like, yeah, like that was amazing. And that kind of like inner compass where he had the confidence and the ability to do that, in my mind, came from me trusting his inner compass, not deferring to it. That's no. Like I'm the parent. It's
Mm.
on me in the end. but taking that information very seriously
Mm,
under consideration as a very important piece of data when I'm making decisions for him, and he has always wanted to lead. And so I've always given him, opportunities to lead that were appropriate for the stage that he was at the time. And then guiding him through the decisions. Like you said, well, what if you try this way? Or, okay, I understand you want to do that. Here's what I need you to be able to do to show that you're ready, and then I can let you do that. So let's practice it together. Things like
yeah,
that.
I like that a lot. So I'm sure the people watching and listening are going to have some questions. They're going to want to connect with you. How can they do that? You mentioned a retreat, and I know you have other ways to connect as well.
Yeah. So the best way is to find me on Facebook, Nicole Tiffany Cruz. There are like tens of thousands of Nicole Cruzes on Facebook. So Nicole, Nicole, Tiffany, and Cruz, Cruz. Um, and send me a request and a message, so I know you're not spam. Like, hey, saw you on Chris's podcast, want to connect.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love having conversations with people. um the retreat, U 2.0, the Body Mind Life Upgrade Retreat, is in September. I'm really excited for it. I'm really grateful for the ways you're helping out with it, Chris. And I'm running it with my partner, Casey, and I'm really excited for
Mm,
it because what we're doing, like, this isn't just like a personal growth retreat, and it's not just a wellness retreat. It's both, because the idea is that we're going to cultivate an optimized state by doing the practices for our minds and our bodies. So we're going to cultivate this like peak state where creativity flows, where shifts happen, where epiphanies spark out of nowhere. And then from that state, we're going to do some planning for our lives. We're going to plan the next chapter.
nice.
Yeah, so and and this is all being done with a focus on like genuine quality connection, bonding with each other,
Yeah.
cultivating that support tribe. So yeah, if anyone's interested in that, definitely check
Cool.
out
Yeah, what's the web address?
yeah, check out bodymindlifeupgrade.com. And you can also message me directly to get, some of the behind the scenes details if you really want the insider info.
Cool. Now, if people are listening to this and September's already gone by
Mm.
and they message you on Facebook and they really want to go to this retreat, are you hoping to have another one?
Yeah, this is my second one. It's the first one I'm doing with Casey. And so I'm thinking
Cool.
probably twice a year.
Nice. Okay. So, guys, keep an eye out for additional retreats from Nicole. It'll be at bodymindlifeupgrade.com. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your really unique experience with your 9-year-old. And I love that story that you shared. Guys, obviously, if you like the show, subscribe, rate, review, whatever it is that's on your screen right now. Nicole, any last words you want to give to the listeners,
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
viewers?
And be unapologetic about who you are. Be unapologetic about slashing things from your life that drain you, in a responsible way, of course, and focusing on your passions and building your life around your zone of genius. Get rid of the shame, get rid of any guilt or judgment you feel towards yourself. Be completely unapologetic about all of it. And the world, if you're neurodivergent, the world wasn't created for you, but you can create a life that's perfect for you. So focus on
Mm,
that. Whether it's a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, don't give up. Move incrementally, or if you can, overnight, but at least incrementally, just keep moving towards that. Have that vision, and you'd be surprised how far you get in the end.
awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those words. Guys, thank you for listening to this episode. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you again, Nicole.
Thank you.